So in the last lecture, we have seen the types of languages according to the type system. So there are two types of languages: strongly typed languages and weakly typed languages. Right. So main thing is that most of the languages nowadays are weakly typed. But what type of languages comes under the category of strongly typed languages? So there are certain important things that comes under the features category of strongly typed languages. Right. The first feature can be if compiler verifies that program cannot be executed with any type error. Fine. So this type of language comes under the category of a strongly typed language. For example, if I have written some integer identifier is equal to float identifier, which means the assignment operator, simple assignment operator, where I have written that the value of float is going to be stored into the integer data type. So the compiler is giving you error. So this type of error you can find in case of these strongly typed languages, right? All the checks are done statically. In the first lecture, in fact, in the second lecture, I've told you there are two types of type checking: static and dynamic. So if all the checks are done at the compile time, which means your language is static, your language is strongly typed language. Now there is one problem. If all the checks are done at statically, but still there will be some exceptions. There are certain checks which cannot be done even in the strongly typed languages. For example, if you have written x is equal to a divided by b, and if b is equal to 0, this check cannot be checked statically. Why? Because the value of b will come runtime, value of a will come runtime. So obviously the value of x will also come runtime. So how the compiler will check it? This expression can give 0 divide error, divided by 0 error, right? So this type of error cannot be checked statically. So strongly typed languages also have certain exception. The one exception that I've discussed, right? You can find out the another exception. आप प्रैक्टिस के लिए फाइंड आउट कर सकते हो और क्या एक्सेप्शन हो सकता है जो डायनामिकली चेक नहीं हो सकता. Second example, you give me second example where we cannot apply static type checking, right? Okay. Logical bugs you will find less. Obviously it will be there, because if you have done some mistake in the logic, then you'll find the logical bugs. But generally because your language is a static type checking, your language is applying static type checking, so it won't allow you to give any type of type error, right? Any type of type mistake. So logical bugs will be less in comparison to the weakly type languages, but it will be there if you have seriously applied some logic problem in the program. So let's take certain examples. Where will you have the errors? See one example. I've written x is equal to y divided by 2. Now tell me whether it will be static type checking or dynamic type checking. Obviously it will be static type checking. Why? Because the value of 2 is already can be checked by the compiler. The value of 2 is already taken by the compiler, and compiler can see that there is no problem in the division. But if I have written y divided by 0, obviously this will give you type error. So it is a static type checking. But similarly, if I write a divided by b, so this comes under the category of dynamic type checking. Dynamic type checking. Why? We have already discussed, because the value of a and value of b will be generated at the runtime, right? So it will give you error at the runtime. Now I'm making some changes. Suppose this is float x and this is y divided by 2. Now can you tell me, is there any error? Is there any type error? Yes, it is having type error. Why? Because your result is float, and if you are writing x is equal to y divided by 2, and in case we assume that your y is integer type, then this will give you type error in case of static type checking in the strongly typed language. Why? The right expression should be y, the right expression should be float y divided by 2.0. Then it won't give you any error. So I hope you are able to understand that if you are storing a result into the float variable and you are dividing the integer with the integer, so obviously you won't get any float result. So you have to generate the float result. You have to remove the type expression error. For that, you have to typecast both the data, both the identifier into the same data type of the result type, right? So this expression won't give you any error. So I hope it is clear to everyone. Now the next topic that we are going to discuss, this is all about the strongly typed language. And obviously in the weakly typed language, generally we don't have a static checking. In some cases we do have, but in generally we don't have a static checking. Most of the cases we have dynamic checking. That means the type errors you will find at the time of runtime. Fine. So the next topic that we are going to start is type equivalence. Okay, now what is the meaning of type equivalence? Type equivalence is basically needed to check whether two type expressions are same or not. It is needed to check whether two type expressions are same or not. Now, what is the meaning of that? Same or not. This is the purpose of type equivalence. Meaning is that suppose I have declared integer a and I have declared float b. Now, can the integer data type is equal to the float data type? That expression of the integer data type is the equivalent expression of the float data type. This I want to know. So obviously सामने से ही दिख रहा है कि ये दोनों बराबर वैल्यू नहीं हो सकती, क्योंकि इंटीजर जनरली कम मेमोरी लेता है और फ्लोट जनरली ज्यादा मेमोरी लेता है. तो और उससे भी ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट, इंटीजर में यू स्टोर राउंड वैल्यूज एंड इन द फ्लोट यू स्टोर द accuracy of the data, that is you store decimal values, right? So the both type expressions cannot be equal, right? Now I wish to know if there is a data of again integer type, so whether the integer expression is equal to integer expression. So obviously one can see that a is integer, b is integer, so both expressions are same. So one integer value can be same as the same type expression as the another integer type expression, right? So there are two types of equivalence. There are two types of equivalence. One, name and 2 structural equivalence. Right. When you are designing the compiler, you have to make sure that one of the equivalence should be implemented in the compiler. In these two type of equivalence, first we'll discuss one by one both the equivalence, then you just see that which equivalence is more required while designing the or while developing the compiler. So we are starting with the first equivalence type, that is the name equivalence. Right. So we are starting with the name equivalence. Now what is name equivalence? We want to check whether two type expressions are same or not by the name. Not we are not going internally. We just wanted to see whether this particular expression name and this particular expression name are equal or not. So I have declared type def integer val, and then I have declared type def integer say fun. Now this we are discussing, this example we are taking in C language, right? So I have declared two variable of type val, and I have declared two variable of type fun. Right. Now if I write A is equal to B, will the compiler give error? Which means what I'm trying to do, the value of A is equal to value of B. You take it as equal to, don't take it as assignment. We are talking about the equal to. So the expression of the A and expression of the B, whether these two expressions are equal or not. What is the meaning of expression? The A is of type val and B is of type val. So obviously both expressions are same. We are not talking about the value stored inside the data type. We are talking about the type of the identifier, right? Similarly, if I write x is equal to y, x is equal to y, so can these expressions are same or not? Yes, of course, these expressions are same by name equivalence. Why? Because the data type of x is fun and the data type of y is also fun. But if I write A is equal to X, so according to the name equivalence rule, these two expressions are not equal. Why? Because the data type by the name is val for A and fun for X. So which means according to the rule of the name equivalence, compiler will see that the data type of A and the data type name of X both are different. So these two expressions are not equal, right? So internally it won't go whether these data type belongs to the similar data type or not. It will see only the name of the data type, right? If it founds that the name of these two data types are different, which means these two expressions are different. So what is the drawback of name equivalence? It won't go in the internal structure of the data. It won't go internal structure of the type expression. It will simply see what is the name of the type. If the name is not matched, then simply it will give you error that the both expressions are not same, right? So second type of equivalence, we'll discuss second type of equivalence, that is structural equivalence. What happens in the structural equivalence, it will check the whole structure, whole depth of the type expression, whole structure of type expression, which means bottom to top, it will check whole the structure of the type expression. Now see same example, type def integer val and type def integer fun. These two data types I have made. Now val, there are two variables of val type and there are two variables of fun type. Now If I have developed the structural equivalence inside the compiler, and if I write x is equal to y, your compiler won't give any error. So how will it check? So it will check in this way. It will write val. It will write val, then integer, which means val is at the front and integer is at the inner layer, right? So it will make a tree structure type structure. It will make a tree structure this way. Fine. So hierarchical structure it will make, and the val will point to, val is basically generated from the integer data type. So it will go inside. कब तक जाते रहेगा? जब तक इसको वो वाला डेटा नहीं मिल जाता जहां से एक्चुअली आपने ये नेम जनरेट करा है. तो val किसको पकड़ेगा? इंटीजर को पकड़ेगा. एंड ऑब्वियसली यहां पर ये क्योंकि प्रिमिटिव डेटा टाइप है तो एक्चुअली इसको पता चलेगा कि आपने जो val है, it is a secondary name for the integer, which means a is actually integer. Similarly, जो दूसरा डेटा टाइप है, क्या लिखा है आपने? fun. The second data type is fun. Internally जाएगा तो क्या मिलेगा? integer मिलेगा. कैसे मिलेगा? कैसे ड्रॉ करेगा ट्री? fun, और fun के अंदर गया तो क्या मिला इसको? integer मिला. और fun किससे डराइव हुआ है? integer से डराइव हुआ है. इसका मतलब जो x है वो भी किस टाइप का है? इंटीजर टाइप का है. तो एक्चुअली ये क्या कंक्लूजन ड्रॉ करेगा? ये ड्रॉ करेगा कि val equals to integer, this is a which is equal to x, और x के लिए इसने क्या डेरिवेशन निकाला? fun. एक्चुअली डेटा टाइप का नाम क्या है? fun, बट ये डराइव कहां से हुआ है? इंटीजर से. सो दैट इज व्हाई इट वोंट गिव यू एनी एरर. I hope this concept is clear. Fine. Now let's take another example. Suppose I have written the structure, struct test, and inside test I have written roll number and I have written, say, character array of name and maximum length 20. This is the structure I have declared in C language, right? Now how your compiler will verify whether two structures are same or not? So first of all, see the coding. I have declared struct, इसको भी वैसे कर लेते हैं type def से, type def struct test, और मैंने एक डिक्लेयर किया t1. Then I have declared type def struct test और डिक्लेयर किया है t2. मतलब जो स्ट्रक्चर है उसका मैंने दो नाम डिक्लेयर कर दिए, एक t1 डिक्लेयर कर दिया और एक क्या डिक्लेयर कर दिया? t2, राइट? नाउ व्हाट एम आई डूइंग? t1, और इससे मैंने एक वेरिएबल बना लिया test1, और t2 इससे मैंने एक वेरिएबल बना लिया test2. फाइन. test1 इज इक्वल टू test1 डॉट रोल नंबर इज इक्वल टू, मैंने लिख दिया 101, एंड test1 डॉट नेम इज इक्वल टू, मैंने लिख दिया, सिंटेक्स पे मत जाइएगा, मे बी सिंटेक्स इज रॉन्ग. Similarly, I have written test2 dot roll number equals to 102 and test2 dot name equals to XYZ, right? This is how I have written. Now somewhere I wish to assign value of test2 into test1. Can I assign? Now, if your compiler is following the name equivalence concept, then it will give the error. Why it will give the error? because your test1 is actually the expression of T1 and your test2 is the variable of T2, and both expressions are different. So that is why you cannot assign test2 into test1. But generally, our languages, the modern languages, follow the concept of, especially weakly language, follow the concept of structural equivalence. तो कंपाइलर कैसे चेक करेगा, इसे ध्यान से देखो. ओके, तो सबसे पहले कंपाइलर एक स्ट्रक्चर बनाएगा, स्ट्रक्ट. ठीक है, किसके लिए बन रहा है ये? T1 के लिए बन रहा है. ओके, देन T1 जो है उससे निकल रहा है एक रोल नंबर. रोल नंबर निकल रहा है और ये किस टाइप का? इंटीजर टाइप का है. और T1 से ही, T1 के अंदर ही आपने एक डिक्लेयर किया हुआ है नेम, जो किस टाइप का है? एरे टाइप का है. अब आ जाओ अंदर. जो एरे है उसका साइज डिक्लेयर किया हुआ है आपने 20 और उसका टाइप है char. Fine. Now see the connection. Struct which is having roll number and name. रोल नंबर किस टाइप का है? इंटीजर टाइप का है. नेम किस टाइप का है? एरे टाइप का है. और जो एरे है वो किस टाइप का है? कैरेक्टर टाइप का है. और उसका साइज कितना है? 20. And the same structure it will draw for T2, right? So while assigning test1 is equal to test2, it will see that test1 belongs to T1, where T1 having two members, roll number and name. Roll number is of type integer, perfectly all right. And name is of type array, which is of type character of length 20. Similarly, it will check for the structure of test2. Test2 belongs to T2. T2 is actually a structure, which is a name test. Again, it is having two members, roll number and name. Roll number is of type integer and name is actually the character array of size 20, which means this statement is correct. So there will not be any type error. I hope I'm very much clear to all of you. If there is any query, we'll have the query session for this. Right, now for your practice, I'm designing one structure and you try to explain me, or you try to design the structural equivalence tree to explain me whether these two data types are same or not. So we have declared a struct. Struct data and it is having a number. जैसे आप लिंक लिस्ट का स्ट्रक्चर बनाते हो, राइट? मैं वो बना रही हूँ यहाँ पर. Struct data and pointer to the next. And this is the structure I have declared. Now you have to tell me, if I declared two variable of data type, so whether these two variable will be equal or not, or how your compiler will draw the diagram of a structural equivalence hierarchy to match whether these two data types are equal or not. So I'm writing type def struct data and link one, right? Then two variables are there, struct data link two. Link one is T2. You have to tell me whether this expression will give error or not. If it will give error, then why? And if it won't give error, then how your compiler will match D1 expression with D2 expression. This you need to practice. And if there is any problem, we'll discuss it later on, right? Now, the last topic in this series is the type conversion. Okay, now what is type conversion? If you are converting one type into the another type, then it is called as, and obviously we are talking about runtime only, then it is called as type conversion, right? Now, there are two techniques of type conversion: implicit and explicit. Okay. Now, generally in case of weakly typed languages, the language has implicit type conversion as a feature. And obviously you can apply explicit also, but generally it will give you a feature, extra feature, that is the implicit type conversion. So we'll see the example one by one. Suppose there is a variable integer of x and there is a variable float y. And I wish to write y is equal to x divided by 14, right? Up in case of a strongly typed language, in case of strongly typed, this will give you error. Then you have to use explicit type conversion. How will you do it? Make it a float at the runtime, x divided by 14.0. करेक्ट. कौन सा टाइप कन्वर्जन करा आपने? एक्सप्लिसिट करा टाइप कन्वर्जन. फाइन. बट there will be no error if language is weakly typed. If your language is weakly typed, like Java and all, then this statement won't give you any error. It will automatically convert the result into the float. Fine. Okay. Now, why we cannot write statement like this? जब आपको x को बार बारी फ्लोट में कन्वर्ट करना पड़ रहा है, जहां कहीं भी आप इसका रिजल्ट y में स्टोर करना चाहते हो, तो हम इसे ऐसे क्यों नहीं लिख रहे हैं? Why are we not writing statement in this way? So this is my question. Why not we declare x as float in the program? Or what is the disadvantage? ये ज्यादा बेटर रहेगा. What is the disadvantage to declare x as a float in the program? इस एक्सप्रेशन की मैं बात कर रही हूं. आप x को पहले ही क्यों नहीं डिक्लेयर कर दे रहे हैं फ्लोट? जब आप इसको एक्सप्लिसिट कन्वर्ट कर ही रहे हो, तो आप इसको पहले ही डिक्लेयर कर दो फ्लोट. तो हम क्यों नहीं डिक्लेयर कर रहे हैं? हम क्यों एक्सप्लिसिट टाइप कन्वर्जन कर रहे हैं? राइट. सो दिस इज माय क्वेश्चन. नाउ टाइप कन्वर्जन में अगर आपका जो टाइप कन्वर्जन है वो इम्प्लिसिट हो रहा है, तो इसका मैंने एक नाम बताया था. वो आपको याद करके मेरे को बताना है. वो आपको याद करके प्रैक्टिस करना है कि उसका नाम क्या था. राइट. There is a secondary name. There is a term called as type coercion. So next question is, what is type coercion? Coercion. You have to tell me what is type coercion. ये आपकी प्रैक्टिस के लिए है. तो एक तो आपको मुझे ये बताना है कि भाई क्या डिसएडवांटेज होगा अगर x को हम फ्लोट डिक्लेयर कर दें, और टाइप कोएर्जन का कॉन्सेप्ट क्या होता है. So this is all about the topic type checking. If you have any confusion, any doubt, we'll meet on Thursday, or we can meet on Saturday or Friday, and we'll discuss all the doubts related with it. Fine. So I'm ending the meeting here only.